Well, basically, Ollie, we were born in the Glen, like, so the Glen, for anyone that lived there, and even nowadays when we relate back to all our childhoods and everything, everybody will tell you, I think without exception, that the Glen was a special place to grow up in. Because we seemed to have everything around us that we wanted at that particular point in time, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12 and everything. We had a Regal across the road, which of course was a cinema, later to become the Forum and everything. And that in itself was an adventure playground when we used to go over there, and we used to get a threepenny bit off our mother and father if they had it on a certain Saturday, and you go over. And they had it divided into two sections and that. So, yeah, we saw a lot of John Wayne films, I needn't tell you, in there. And then we had...
So just with the Regal, was that kind of like, was it kind of seen as kind of like, was it matinees you used to go to?
Oh, the matinees, Saturday afternoons, yeah.
And it was mostly cowboy films and that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, they had a lot of gangster films as well. Obviously, everything was in black and white. Eddie G. Robinson and Broderick Crawford and actors like that traditional bad guys behind their credentials, But of course, you had the other cinemas then, the Regal, the Savoy and the Coliseum, But the Regal was unique in its own. Oh, they had the gods up there as well. And that was I think you went up there, all they had was just wooden seats. You just sat down on them. I think you might have got in for a penny cheaper or something,
And were there ever any trouble at that?
No, I never saw an ounce of trouble. But funnily enough, down on the bottom, as we'll call it, the stalls and the back of it, they used to have a petition running along. Of course, when all the lights would be out and everything, a few bravehearts would get the thing and dive down like snipers, and they go under the thing and they'd be sitting up further up then instead of sitting a mile away, So, yeah, you kind of, you done that at your own risk, It was funny.
And then later on that place became the Forum.
The Forum, yeah.
And lots of really big names, I think, over the years.
Oh, yeah, well, obviously Johnny Cash was up there. I think John Denver was up there too. But I do know I saw Tin Lizzy there, the original Tin Lizzy. I saw him there in about, I think it was around 19, I still am a big Tin Lizzy fan. I saw him there in 1972. And actually he met Phil Lynott there. It was a funny story how I met him. When the show was over, everybody, was kind of gone out the door. There weren't too many people just be hanging around in them days. The Breens had it like. So I went over, because we lived in the Glen next to the showboat. So I went over, and when I was over there, I said, I'd never get an opportunity again. I said, I'd go back over, I might see Phil Lynott, I said. So I went back over, knocked on the door, and Ned Barden, God be good to him, Ned was the elder kind of projectionist fella in there as such, but Ned kind of ran the Forum at the time. And I said, Ned, any chance of going back in? I said, I might catch one and see. Oh, yeah, he said, yeah, come on in. There was nobody there. The roadies were taking down the gear. But before I went in, they had the toilets up at the back. You could go in there first. So I must go into the toilet. Went into the toilet, and who was in there? Only Phil in it. I only told a few people this story. And I remember him distinctly. He had a real thin cricket-like jeans on him. And he had boots with the stars and stripes on him, right? And I said, oh, Jesus, well, Phil. Of course, I forgot what I was supposed to be doing in there. With amazement, So he came out and he said, well, did you enjoy the show? Ah, fantastic. I said, yeah. He said, come on down, he said. So they had two aisles going down either side of the main seats. And we went down, the roadies were taking down the gear. And he kind of put his arm around me and I said, come down here. He said, come down and meet a few of the lads. So I met Brian Downey and Eric Bell didn't have to be there, probably gone out the back or something. So he said to the roadies, throw down a few of them photographs. The old photographs you used to have with the show bands. So your man threw down 3 photographs with the 3 of them on it. So Philo signed it for me, right? And I said, oh, Jesus, fantastic. In them days there were no cameras, right, So that was one of my abiding memories. But I was actually waiting about 30 years to get that photograph signed by Brian Downey. He played with a band called Blues Up Front. He came down to the Hog's Head, and I went down one Saturday night to see him. And he came in, I took out the photograph. I had it in between a book for nearly 30 years. And I showed him the photograph. He I waited until the break at half time. I showed him the photograph. I said, Brian, would you sign that for me? I said, I'm only waiting about 30 years. He said, Jesus, where'd you get that? I said, That was 1972 up around the corner, a place called the Forum up there, I said. So he signed it for me. So Eric Bell then, I said, I'll bide me time. And a few years afterwards, the Eric Bell band were playing down in Shefflin's. And you know, Owen Cavanagh out in Tramore, Gino's young fella, he was organising the thing. So I got in touch with him. I said, Owen, I said, I have a photograph here. I just need Eric, I said, to sign it for me. I'll have the three of them on the photograph, I said. So he said, yeah, okay, they're doing a sound check in the afternoon, Saturday afternoon. Come down, he said, Billy, be nobody there. Down I goes anyway. Next minute, we're just coming down off the stage, and I called Eric, showed him the photograph. Eric, I said, wouldn't oblige me signing that. I said, would you? The other two boys, I said, only got that off Brian, I said, 3 or 4 years ago. The other one was originally back in 1972. Oh, jeez. Yeah, he said, what a photograph, he said. So he signed it, and I got it framed, and I put my own little epitaph thing on it. I showed it, because I was good friends with Philomena Linnet. A lot of people don't know that. She sent me a card every Christmas, and I was up in the house like 2 or 3 times. Yeah, lovely
That's
lady.
a great story. And also, you were next door to Showboat.
Oh, we're next door to the Showboat, correct,
They've
yeah.
got a few bands as well over the years.
They had a few bands. Obviously, the main band that everybody talks about nowadays, U2, like when they were in there. I mean, I didn't see U2 in there that particular night, but my brother Anthony would have been aware of that. But there were only three teenagers, like, you know, or 4 teenagers when they came along.
Well, that was some amazing thing, wasn't it? Like, they went on to become mega.
Yeah, there were a few international stars sang in there as well. There was I can't think of the. I mean, obviously people like Joe Dolan and that wasn't in there, but there were a lot of people played in there. I know Nullig Bridge, man, the late Nullig Bridge, the drummer with Skid Row. He played in there with his own band one night. This was after the demise of Skid Row, you know. Yeah, but it was the Showboat was a fabulous venue. Then you had, of course, Simon and the Partners and all them local bands, like, and it was really it was a whole movement went on every weekend, whatever they were playing, and Lions out in Slieve Rue, the Dolphin out in Tramore, you know. The Showboat was up there because it was big enough anyway, you know. It was long enough.
And just go back again to your childhood. You're obviously you're out playing on the street. What was like? What were the kind of fun things you used to do when you were kids?
Well, the main thing for me, I suppose, was playing football. But we did play cowboys and Indians, like down around them lanes and over by the Union Hall. And then you had the Fannin House Institute. That was across the road, and that was a complete that was like something out of a horror movie. When you see horror movies today. You go over there and there were all kind of trees going in around it, and it was real kind of eerie, you know, in the winter nights and things like that, you know. But we actually had a kind of a relation to my mother's in there. I remember the name of Johnny Wallace. And my mother used to often boil a few eggs and say, Billy, would you bring them over to Johnny? And he used to go over and go in. There's big gates when you go in, and then you had a big reception area. But when you go in, like, I don't know how many people a house or anything, but it was really... it was really, what do you call it, it was really old, so, but you had big walls around it. And then when we were involved in the Dominican,
that was for kind of homeless people, wasn't it? Kind of
no, I think it was elderly people, it was kind of like the residential homes. But when we were involved in the Dominican, we formed a youth club. And one of the first kind of youth clubs was down in the basement in the Fannin House. And we used to be down there. We used to have Brother Pascal was a very well-known. He was a brother that came from Rome, and he ended up becoming an official priest, like, you know. But we used to always call him Brother Pascal. I just saw his grave at Ballybeg in the Dominican plot out there the other day when I was out there. So they done their best to accommodate us. We had a boxing club down there as well, and we had kind of table tennis and that. But then after that, there was another move made over where the sea and rescue place at the end of Thomas Street. That was another social club that we had in there, a boys' club in there. And I remember before that was called the Crystal. And who I saw in there on one particular night was B.P. Fallon. B.P. Fallon came along one day, and you know, they used to have them gongs, them little Muppet things, you know, them things. And we saw this car with 2 or 3 of them across the dash. And we kind of said, geez, what's going on here? Next minute, he kind of came out to get something out of the car, but he was, I mean, he was famous even then, like, you know what I mean?
He was a DJ, wasn't
He was a DJ, yeah, BP, yeah. But he after meeting the Beatles, he met a lot of people, Stones, everyone, like in latter years.
And, sorry, Dominican, you were saying you were in the Dominican Boys Club, and you were an altar boy there, was it?
Well, we're not altar by Ali. Most of us, as I said, was that grew up in the Glen, obviously with the influence that the church had. Like, I mean, everybody used to go to mass on Sunday and during the weekdays and that. But we had, we all kind of was 10 or 11 went down and joined the altar boys. We were there for a 3 or 4 year period, but we developed a lifetime friendship with a few altar boy lads. Namely now somebody be like John Frisbee lived up in Gray's Dew, James E. Kelly lived from Griffith Place originally. They would have ended up lifetime friends of mine, like, you know what I mean? But we all done it because it was like kind of tradition, you know what I mean? And we used to be down there then in the night time for benediction, and there used to be all have the parade going around the church and everything. Like, it was kind of the done thing. But we did get up to a few antics down there. They had cellars down there, right? And of course, these stories are only coming to light now, so I feel privileged. And on Sunday afternoons, of course, alcohol was never touched. We wouldn't have any money anyway. But we used to go down there, and kind of the little wicket gate used to be open in them days, it was safe enough. But we used to go in, and we used to go into the cellar, and next we'd be all down there playing cards in the afternoon. About 8 or 9 of us would be all playing cards, poker and everything, you know. We done that for a good few years before Brother Pascal suddenly realised that a bit of activity happening downstairs. But then, another adventure, we went up to the bell tower. And they wouldn't be ringing the bell, but we're often up on the bell tower. And we actually, on one occasion, we went across the whole roof of the Dominican. If you slipped off it, you were gone. You were history. And the big dome that's over the church, I remember being up on that spread eagle, and you could look all the way down onto the altar.
It's some view of water, look up there.
Oh, fantastic, yeah. And the ridge where the bell tower is, you could get out and you could walk. The ridge would be, 2 feet wide. You could walk around it, but of course, if you slipped, you were gone.
And as an altar boy too, you'd make a few bob, wouldn't you, for separate things, like for...
Well, they didn't have any weddings. They had 1 or 2 weddings down there, but...
It wasn't that kind of church?
No, exactly, Ali. It wasn't that kind of a church at all, nah.
And do you know all the scandals that happened afterwards with the church? I mean, was there any kind of hint of that kind of stuff at that time?
No, I'd have to say I never saw any signs of that down there, no. Definitely, but Brother Pascal was... we got to respect him as we got older in life, and when we were gone and made our own way in life, we got to look back on him. I used to call in to see him in odd time and that, And then on one particular summer, they had a holiday camp down a place called Knockadoon down in Cork. When you pass Youghal, you turn off down towards the coast down there, and they had a kind of a boys set up down there. They used to bring clubs of altar boys there every few weeks, and our turn came, and we went down there for a week, but they had kind of basketball, and they had swimming off the pier and things like that. But I can still vividly remember who was there and Brother Pascal being there and everything,
And one last story about Dominican. Remember, there was a story about one of the Dominicans that painted the altar.
The mosaics. Yeah.
Tell us that story.
Yeah, what you asked me there now, Ali, is a lot of people know that story. A lot of people, of course, might be aware of it, but Jack Bow, who lived up on the Glen Hill, he was a brother in the Bow's meat providers, and Denny's Lane and all that, the butcher and thing. Jackie was working the shop himself. It was like a conveyor belt going down. But Jack's wife was a lady by the name of Kitty Blackmore, and very, very good looking woman. And she looked very much, we remember looking at her, we used to see her coming down with Jack going to mass on a Sunday morning, but she was really, really tall, thin, elegant, but she was a spitting image of Jackie and us. Oh, if you saw her, you'd say hey, that looks like who I think it looks like. But I only heard the story later on, in latter years, that the brother, when we was doing this mosaic thing with the little features, that he actually got Kitty to stand in for one of the kind of portraits, I still don't know to this day which one it is. It was never pointed out to us, like, you know.
No, it's a great story, though. It's a great
Oh,
story.
it's a fantastic story, but she was really, talking about a good-looking woman, like, you know, like the song.
And you mentioned the bows, and obviously they're associated with the abattoirs and the butchers and all that. So your area was surrounded by all these, wasn't it?
Yeah, like at the side of the show, but there you had, the official name was Penrose Lane, right? But we used to call it Denny's Lane. Now, don't ask me why. Obviously, Denny's second bag was halfway down it. When you turn over Ann Street there, halfway down where the Holding the pub was. Another famous establishment. One of my best friends was...
The whole wall.
The Hole in the Wall was Billy Buckley's son. He's in England a long time now, but that was a famous pub, obviously. There used to be a lot of sing-songs in there and everything. But down that lane, on the right-hand side, you had there was a man called Jimmy Penn that used to be there in the night, and when we were all small and we'd been down there waiting for Jimmy, the Lord used to come in from up the country with a load of pigs or a load of sheep, whatever the case may be. But John Cullen was a man lived up Military Road at the side of by Scanlon's pub up there. And I can still see John to this day, a big barley red-faced man, right? And he used to come along at 7 or 8 in the night to come back from up the country. And we'd be all down there herding the sheep or the pigs off the lorries. And they had a big holding stables up that yard. Then they bring him out there at different intervals in the following day, bring him down to just past the break in the road there, Ann Street there, and they'd bring him in the gate down there, and then the killing all went on in there. Now they also had them on bats of hot water for the pigs to burn all the hair off them and everything. So when all that was done, Jimmy Hodges was one of the main butchered men down there. That's Jimmy Hodges from Emmett Place up there. Gentleman. It used to be on the conveyor belt, then they'd clean them all up, wash them, bring them down into fridges, and then they'd move them on down to the shop. So if you went down to the very end of Denny's Lane, the shop used to be in operation there, and Jack used to be serving in there.
Very efficient system.
Yeah. Now on the other side of Denny's Lane then, as we call it, Collins' brothers had meat providers there. The late Paddy Cody and Martin Cody, they had a strong association with Collins's. Here in his own stalwarts. But they used to have trucks, refrigerated trucks used to come along. And Paddy and Martin Cody and Bobby, the late Bobby Sinnott from John's Park, I remember a few fellas' faces and names. They used to bring out the shoulders of bacon and throw them up on the hooks, and they'd all be put on the fridge. And the lorries used to go off like that. They used to have the back entrance up the Glasshouse Lane. That's where they used to bring all the live animals.
Where was Bowes Abattoir?
Bowes Abattoir was just down past the break in Ann Street there, halfway down. They had a big green gate there, and you go in there and they had all the kind of killing line in there, you know.
And would you see the animals?
Oh, yeah. They were kind of, sometimes the gate might be open in the middle of the summer, like, and you could snake in, you'd see. You might like what you see, but we couldn't just have a look. But everything was a big adventure, you know. They used to have little holding pens in there then, and one or two of the butchers, Jimmy Hodges in particular, they used to bring out the sheep then one at a time, like, and stick them, you know, and the same with the pigs and that, you know.
And like blood and guts and...
Oh, you name it, yeah.
Manure and all that was very common around the area.
Oh, yeah, around that area it was, yeah. I actually got a job. I remember a man down there, I think it was Jack Laffin's father. I think his name was Jack Laffin. But when I was only around 12, I got a job delivering the meat with him. People used to come in and place orders, you know, a few steaks or something, and we used to get in the van with him. And they were down the Cork Road at the time. And we used to go around the city. I used to go around the city with him, and he'd be knocking on people's door. There's the meat you ordered yesterday. We'd hand them in like food parcels. You know what I mean? Well, that was a little small job I got.
And up around the corner then was Denny's.
Well, Denny's was up around the corner, yeah. Now, Denny's too, of course, was employed a lot of people, locally, obviously. But you had a big chimney stack, and then you had, it was like a big adventure going up there. Often we went up there for people, you used to get pickle, big kind of jugs of pickle. It was for keeping meat fresh and things like that. And we used to go up, and they had big cellars down there. And you go down, you see big bats of pickle. But that was being...
What was pickle?
Pickle was a kind of... well, you know, people in the butcher thing, you'd be able to tell you exactly what it is, but it was Pickle was kind of, it was a thing for either purifying meat or keeping it, you know, that type of thing. But that was it. That was a really big factory at the time to us, like, because you had a kind of you had a cellar place up there as well. Most places had cellars, you know. Yeah. But another small point there, really, about the back of Denny's. People wouldn't be aware of this now at the hypermarket there. That up on that road, that was called Military Road, Crows Road. Across the road now from where the entrance to the kids in the Mercy Convent is. But that was just a street there which Dominic Kearns, the Kearnses lived there. And their brother Donald was involved in the butchering thing down in Bowes as well, the late Donald. But I remember going in there calling Dominic to go to school. And it was like a big forest. You used to go in around and just kind of one or two houses in there. That was it, you know. It was kind of a private kind of houses, you know. Yeah, but the monastery part of it for the nuns, that was always kind of there, you know.
And you mentioned, I was talking to you earlier, you mentioned the black patch. What was that?
The black patch was, of course, in them days there weren't too many cars, so that's why we had the luxury sometimes of playing on the main road. But I do remember on Sunday mornings, my brother Paul and this other man, John Frisbee, we were all around the same age, but obviously one or two guys be quicker than the rest. But we used to be always kind of daring each other to take who'd win a race. So we might say, today Sunday morning you go out, there'll be nobody there. There might be one car on the black patch. But we used to use the outer perimeter. And we were at the Olympics, used to be on, and after watching a bit of it in black and white or something back in the day, we used to have races, and there used to be 4 or 5 of us in the race. But my brother Paul and John Frisbee, they were unbeatable. Nobody could get near them. You do 10 laps of it, like, but they'd end up. The chance of catching them were slim.
Where was the black patch?
The black patch is actually where the cars are parked now in front of the Forum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was pure. That was all black. Well, back you know, all them years ago, it was purely black kind of a tire on it. But there were only 1 or 2 overnight vehicles might stay on it, a truck or something like that, you know. So we used that.
You mentioned the Hole in the Wall pub, but then there's also, I suppose, the only pub that's left from those days is Downs's.
Downs's, yeah, the late Johnny the Bromhead. Downs's was always a very unique pub. I know the first pub we had a drink in was up in Scanlon's on the corner. Martin Bulger had it then, and that was unique in itself. But Downs's was a kind of a special pub. We used to go in there in the early days, and Johnny used to be in there, but then they had the squash courts out the back as well. But Johnny was a very unique type of a character. You get to know him over a period of time, but then when he used to have a winner, and his brother Harry used to have, who's now the father of the man out there now, Henry's father. But when Harry used to have a winner, how you might go into the pub and Johnny be after opening a bottle of champagne, and in one side of the bar, which is existing today, the small bar, when you go inside, he could have 2 or 3 guests there, and they'd be all pouring out the champagne. And I used to go with my brother Paul, and we used to say, Harry must have had a winner today. You know.
And Henry is now one of the biggest.
Of course, yeah.
Trainers in the UK environment.
I think he has about 40 employed out there.
Wow.
Yeah. The figure I got was around 40. I saw something on the telly there a while back. He had about 40 people employed. But I was in his company once or twice, not directly, but he comes across as being a very down-to-earth guy. Even getting the freedom of the city, you see the way he took it on board. He didn't, no ego attached to it, you know.
And Billy, just about the shops down in the area when you were kids, like what kind of shops did you go shopping, to get sweets or anything?
Well, the main shop was on the corner of Thomas Street there. There was a lady there, Kathleen Brennan, and everybody knew Kathleen Brennan, but people used to have the book. You go in like my mother, because there were 7 of us in it. You just go up and you get stuff on the book, bring up the book, and Kathleen, you get a few blazes and a bottle of milk or something. Kathleen is right into the book. Then my mother would go up and pay it on the weekend and that, you know. But Kathleen had a kind of a store out the back with potatoes and fire briquettes and things like that. But there were two other shops then around the corner, up just past where Jack Bow, where Pat Burden of the gas place now. Mrs. Hickey was in that shop, and she used to be mainly open in the night times. She'd open at 4 or 5 o'clock, but that was mainly for people running up out of the cinema. They dug up at half time to get something. She mostly sold sweets and biscuits and cakes and things like that. But just across the road then you had Bridie Gallagher's. Bridie lived there with her sister Mary, but that was more or less a little small kind of a grocery shop. She'd have tins of beans and pounds of butter and things like that, you know. But down inside of the Forum then, where you had the entrance going in on the right hand side, then you had Jim Storden, the barber. And Jim used to have his the hairdressing place in there, like, you know.
And is that where you went to get your haircut?
Oh, everybody went into Jim Storden. I remember going in because he used to have two big chairs, but when you went in as a child, he put this board across the chair so you were sitting up nice and high for him, you know. And just on the other side of the pillars, there was a man there called Mr. Veriker, and he had a sweet shop that was, you know, practically on top of the cinema. But I remember what I remember distinctly about that man who used to go in there, and his wife, I can still see him to this day. He was a gentleman. He used to go in, he used to take the big blocks of ice cream out of the fridge, and you'd say, Mr. Verica, could I have a sixpenny one or whatever? So he cut it with his eye, you know, and he put a big bit of Rippleby in it, and he put the wafer on it. Well, I needn't tell you, this was so nice, you wouldn't even feel like taking the first bite out of it, because they'd be gone, you know.
And sorry, I forgot to ask you too about, on the other side of the hill, then you had Ballybricken, the marts.
Oh, the mart,
so
yeah.
You had all the...
Stop. Well, we used to go up in the morning times, Ali, when we were going to school in Mount Sion at 10 to 9 and be rushing up the hill. There used to be, all the farmers used to be bringing all the small trucks along and offloading the cattle into the pens before they went in to do the sales on them, like, you know. But in the evening times when we were coming back at 4 o'clock or whatever, then it was time, like all the sales would be over, the fellas used to have to hose down the whole place. But of course when you hose down the whole place on the hill, there was only one place was going to go, was down the hill. You know, so I remember distinctly the water, the mart to be glittering, but all the aftermath would be all after coming down the hill. And the only way you get rid of it was with the natural weather. You know, if a big shower of rain came or something, other than that.
So every week you got this...
Oh, yeah.
This flow of manure coming down.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt, yeah. The only thing was a bit away from the houses, like, and the better, the worse the weather got, the further it went down. But I do remember on one particular winter, I remember distinctly, Ali, we actually had, like the Olympic slide. It was snow, ice, the temperature was down to freezing point, and I remember distinctly from the top of the mart, we went out with gallons of water and we poured them all down, and they went down the hill, down past the showboat, down as far as the fan house, and you could get on a big sheet of cardboard. We used to do this in the night, but there were no traffic. We used to do this in the night, and we got on a big piece of cardboard, and you'd go from the top straight off down to the bottom.
Wow.
That was a very unique occasion. One particular man I remember who was leading the charge was a man by the name of Morris Madden, the late Morris Madden, yeah. Because Morris, we were a lot younger. Morris was a few years older, so he said, "Come on, lads, we get this slide going." And he was, I think he practically invented the slide, but it was unreal. Probably we never got the same amount of coldness again, you know. But we took advantage of it on that particular year.
And there was I suppose a lot of people wouldn't know about Annie Brophy. She was from up around the corner, up back of the jail there.
Barker Street.
Yeah.
Barker Street.
Like, for a woman to be a professional photographer was unusual, wasn't it?
Of course it was, yeah. And back when we were getting our communion photographs and confirmation photographs, and then you had all people just bring their kids when they're 1 or 2 for family portraits and that. But you took a lot of famous photographs. I never actually saw the woman directly, but saw a lot of her photographs obviously over the years. But she was the mainstay. Like, I think her and Joe McGrath. Joe was down on the manor originally. They were the main 2 photographers I can remember. You had 1 or 2 other photographers attached Simon Farrell were attached to the two local papers, the Munster and the News and Star, you know.
And like, speaking of which, I mean, the newspapers, there's a lot of newspapers around O'Connell Street, that area. Would you have done anything like that? Would you have seen the lads selling papers or delivering papers?
No, but I do remember over outside the Savoy Cinema, when you had the Irish Independent office over there. There was a man over there, and if people can relate back to it, and his nickname was Wexford. And when we used to be passing a Saturday evening trying to get the football results, he'd be outside and he'd be saying, Evening Herald, come and get the Evening Herald. He'd have a stack of them there, and he was like a father figure. He'd be there every weekend, and he became a father figure. He was the man like the girls' newspapers, but to the Irish Independent office.
And you know the Savoy, I mean, that was a bit more upmarket, wasn't it, the Savoy to Regal and...
Well, I would, yeah, if you were to put it in that category, I'd say it was a little bit upmarket, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so was like I said, a Penny Deer or something like that, same with the Regina. But it was amazing, but the Coliseum had its own uniqueness as well, like, you know what I mean? What was the man they called down there, the sheriff, was it? Yeah. You'd be outside in the queue and you come along with a big kind of long stick, like a big pole, and he'd be saying, yeah, move in on the footpath there, and you get a jab at this thing and you'd move in, you know. But it was comical. But I don't know how we ended up going there a few times. Saw a lot of Western films down there.
And you played a lot of soccer when you were young, and like, I suppose people might be aware of how brilliant the soccer team was in Waterford at that time, Waterford soccer team.
Yeah, well, back in them days, all it was like religion, really, because Waterford went through a bad patch prior to hitting the golden era. And I remember with my three brothers, every second Sunday we used to leave the house in the Glen, and everything was like clockwork. We'd leave the house at exactly, you know, whatever time it was, 2 o'clock or whatever, and you'd walk up Phillip Street, down Bunker's Hill, off out Poleberry, off up the Ursline Road, and people in the much bother getting people out of Garvey's or Keneally's pub at the time, the Mansion. People just went because if you didn't go, you'd miss the match. So everybody, it was like religion. But I remember going up the Ursline Road with my three brothers. I think I was only around 11 or 12. And the sights that you see as regards the accumulation of people used to be fantastic. They were like sheep in Australia. The road would be glutted going up with people. And then, of course, if Rovers were in town, or Bows or Dundalk or someone, their supporters would be coming along in a kind of their own private bunch, as we'll call it, you know. But there were fabulous times. We saw unbelievable football, you know. And they brought a lot of honour and excitement to the city, like, you know. And then the players that came after them at different stages, because nothing stays still forever, particularly. But the locals, I think we were always very well aware of the locals, the magnitude of getting a game on this team, like Alfie, John O'Neill, Shamey Code, Al Casey, all household names, like. And as the years went on, obviously one or two of them had to drop out and things kept revolving, and they were probably a little bit more outside of an influence then as regards the players that came in on board, but they won a few leagues afterwards as well. But they were fabulous. And then we had the people that came at the start, of course, with Peter Thomas now. Tommy Taylor was the original goalkeeper on the first league winning side, 65-66. And but Peter Thomas came just after him, and then of course Johnny Matthews arrived, and Jimmy McGill came down from Linfield in the north. John O'Neill came back from Drumcondra, Al Casey came back from Cork Celtic. So it all gelled in together, you know, and then we had the magical moments. I think anyone that was ever saw Mali over the years we never forgot what we saw, you know.
So
incredible.
At their height, they played teams like, the European competitions they played.
Of course, they were blessed. They were blessed with drawing Man United. They were the current European championships, champions. And then the following year they drew Glasgow Celtic. And they had several outings in Europe, obviously, on account of winning the leagues and that. But the 2 years that they were going for the double, 68 and 72, they won the league them 2 years, but they were deprived of the double twice, which was Rovers beat them in one of the cup finals and Cork Hibs beat them in the other one. That was, of course, the day of the famous epic down in Flower Lodge the week before, where Waterford came back with 10 men to beat them 3-2. And the following week, then, it was known as the Maya Dennehy Cup Final. He was the first. I became very good friends with Maya. It became the Maya Dennehy final because he got first player to get a hat-trick in the FAI Cup Final, you know. But they were magical times, and we never forget them. But even today, I said this.
And because of that, though, we say Waterford City would definitely have a much more strong leaning towards soccer rather than hurling and Gaelic football and all that.
Yeah, that'd be true, Ali, because at the end of the day, it's only if they're winning the 2 All-Irelands. Like, now, I had an uncle played on the 48 team, Eddie Crew. My mother was the Crew. And Eddie was a huge, colossal man. But the one thing I did notice, even with the 59 team, Mick Flannelly, who worked in Croker's Printers at the end of Ann Street, just after Bo's butchering shop. Mick used to be there, and when we used to go for a walk with the mother, she used to bring us off out on Upper Rockshire Road, but we used to be passing the gate, and Mick used to be in there doing the printing. Total gentleman. But particularly in that 59 team, with Tom Chasty and Larry Guine and Seamus Power and all them, there were people that never looked for publicity or never liked to be kind of pointed out and said, there's the All-Ireland fella won the thing. They were very modest people. Frankie Welch, of course, being the captain, the Mount Simon. So, but then after that, I think another were beaten in two Munster finals, I think in the 70s. But Pat McGrath, people ask me this over the years, Pat McGrath was Ken's father, of course. I would have went to school with Pat. And I think he was about 6 months older than us. But even today, by today's standards, Pat McGrath was an outstanding hurler. But they didn't have strength in depth, Ali. And in most of the games, they were up against Cork and Tipperary. I mean, you know, with respect, they could have had, 12 qualified players. 3 guys would make up the 15, and then it just wasn't there, you know. And they went through a lot of lean periods. But I mean, you'll have to admit, like back when I was driving a bus Airden, I drove the hurlers for 9 years through 3 managers, and I drove them to the 208 All-Ireland. Certainly they were probably the best team. Were probably one of the best teams that never won it, you know. Milan, Tony Brown, Kane, outstanding players.
I just want to ask you too, you mentioned Croker's,
printers, yeah.
What other industries were in the area besides? We mentioned Denny's, we mentioned Croker's. What else that you remember growing up?
Well, the second bag was there too, but that was Willie Watts. That was, sacks and making all the things. And they were taken over by Golden's Plastics in the latter years. No, Ali, there was no other really industry around the place as such, not that I can think of, no.
And do you know the way, apparently in history, I don't know when, but Waterford Crystal started off down in Glasshouse Lane, that area, around that area. Were you aware of that when you were growing up?
Wasn't really aware of it, but if it was of a small nature, because I worked in the glass from 70 to 93, and I know Ballytruckle was where it all officially originated, you know what I mean?
I think this is going back there.
You're probably going back to Willie Penrose. Yeah. And that's probably where Penrose Lane came out of too.
Okay, do you want to will you just have a look at the other thing that you wrote out there, just see if we left out anything. And don't worry about this because we can edit this bit out.
Yeah. So well, the other thing was the 2 pubs that were on the end of the street, which was most unique, was the Glen Bear, which was originally been the showboat. But then on the other hand, you had Hanley's.
Do you remember the Glen Bear?
Oh, I remember the Glen Bear, yes. Billy Bryant had the Glen Bear.
That had a bit of a famous reputation.
Well, Ali, a famous reputation. I wouldn't privy to what you might call a reputation, but
well, we say, for example, now it would be we say a certain clientele.
Yeah. Oh no, what you're referring to there now is that was after the Glen Bear, because Billy Bryant, who owned them houses where we were all living in, a few people bought them in that road there. Few people bought them and other people paid rent. My mother paid rent every week. That was taken over afterwards by a certain gentleman, and you would be right to say there was a certain clientele. There was regular visitors in there. But that was before Tom Tracy.
Talk a little bit about that, really, because you know now the culture reporter, blah, blah, but Waterford did have an interesting reputation, even though it was quite a small town.
Yeah.
Because of the port.
Exactly, Ollie, because of the port,
Tell
yeah.
us a little bit about that, because a lot of people wouldn't realise that, because the port has gone downriver and all that kind of stuff.
People wouldn't realise. I mean, we used to go down to the docks, and they used to have the chocolate crumb used to come in on it, and all it really was chocolate powder. But like, you go down there to stuff your face with it, like, you know. But then the other boats were going over on the flour mills over there, delivered in flour, delivered in wheat, and all that stuff. So yeah, but we did have occasion to see a few fisticuffs outside on the main road and things like that late in the night, you know.
And like prostitution would be normal, wouldn't it?
Prostitution, I would have to say, being honest, prostitution was there, yeah. We weren't fully aware of it as such, but we had a fair idea, like what was going down.
And a lot of smuggling and stuff as well, wasn't it?
What's that, Ollie?
Contraband, like stuff like wheeling and dealing, stuff coming in on the boats.
I wouldn't have been too well aware of that now, as regards cigarettes or tobacco or wheeling and dealing. No, I have to say I never saw any of that activity, no.
But I mean, the docks would have given that kind of sense of Waterford being a city rather than a small town, wouldn't it? Like,
yeah, of course it would have. But the docks was a thriving industry. I do remember, actually, one family. I do remember the families that lived down at Glasshouse Lane. Martin Hanlon, Billy Hanlon, his father, done the fishing on the river with all the eels. He used to export eels and things like that. And then you had the Keatons. Now, their father was a man called Stephen Keaton. He was a docker on the docks. And believe it or not, he was a double for an actor I mentioned earlier by the name of Broderick Crawford in the black and white films in America. And in the glass factory, when I was in the cutting shop out there, on one particular summer, you'd see a lot of famous people coming in. But who came in one particular day? Only Broderick Crawford. And I got off the bench, put down the glass, and I went out and I said, Mr. Crawford, can I see you for a minute? He turned around, yeah, he had a big check jacket on him. And he'd be with 2 or 3 prominent people bringing him around. I said, there's a gentleman in Waterford, I said, and I said, you've got a double in Waterford. He said, is that right? He said, American accent, big stout man, you know. I said, yeah, man, my name is Stephen Keaton. I said, you have a double. I said, he's a spitting image of you. And I remember him, he was still looking at me, kind of go, that's a good one, okay, yeah, look after yourself. And that was it, but he was. The Simpsons, who were very active in the boxing circles, Barty Simpson and all them, they all grew up down in Glasshouse Lane as well. And Keith Dunphy, the actor. Keith's original birthplace, well, might not be his birthplace, but his mum and dad, they lived down there in Glasshouse Lane as well.
Now, quite a lot of the dockers would have had a tough reputation too, wouldn't they?
Oh, they would. I mean, I think the way it was, I know Martin Cullen's father, he was one of stevedores, as they were called, and if you had a certain amount of workers there on standby for a boat could be coming in, I think he had to determine I want 60 this morning, or I want 10 or whatever it was. So obviously I'd say at times tensions could have ran a little bit high as regards who was getting work and who wasn't getting work. But then there was another gentleman down there, Harry Miller's father, and his uncle Della Miller, and Jimmy Miller was Harry's father, the late Harry Miller. They lived up around Dial Street and that, but you had the same regular faces down there. But I mean, it was hard work. There was the thing, always with the big black buckets with the big hook on them. And they drop these things down and pour them out, like, and you'd have to fill them up or whatever the case. I mean, I needn't tell you it was thirsty work.
I'd say it was cute. I'd say anyone today now would die doing it.
Oh yeah, by today's standards, no, you fellas, you wouldn't last a day doing it, no.
Billy, I'm going to have to stop it because I don't want to miss the next fella coming in.
That's grand, Lolly, yeah.
That was fantastic, Billy.
Okay.
That was brilliant, and there's loads of stuff there.